Hi, everybody. So good to have you back for another segment of Ask Me Anything. This is definitely a favorite, definitely a favorite of the community
To have
because
you back for another
what I get to do, hold on
segment
one
of
second.
Ask Me Anything. This is
What I get to do is I get to take all of your, hardest things that you shared with me on your questionnaires when you join the Facebook group. I'm hearing from Tracy and Kelly and Angelica, Rashid and Priscilla, Allison, Gladys, and Dana, Natalie, Tynell, Ed, Shannon, and Sujata and Carrie, as well as Andrea K, have all filled out the form where it said, what is the hardest thing about parenting your kids right now? And we pull questions out of that and we do our best to go ahead and address them together. And I want you to know that if this is not your question I'm answering, you might still hear something in this that will help you walk away with a tool or strategy that you can put into practice, maybe a mindset shift that can help to move things in your family towards what your vision of what your family life would be like, that you really want. So whether that's more calm and confidence in those moments that test your patience the most, like tantrums and meltdowns and power struggles, or maybe for you, it's something more like, wanting to feel on the same team with your partner, with other caregivers. I know some folks also, one of the things that they really want is to be able to motivate their kids during this time of back to school to do things like get out the door on time or still contribute to chores even though they're away from the house most of the day. Or maybe it's to open up about what it is that they're experiencing in their daily life at school. Now that you're spending all this time apart, you want to stay in touch with that. So there's all these different things that, are on people's minds these days. And I just want you to know that, I've been having dozens, if not hundreds of conversations with parents over the last few months where they're having really similar questions. They're having really similar, struggles or concerns, especially around kids' mental and emotional health, as well as, just wanting to get a sense of a rhythm in this school year. So the first thing I want you to know is that there's still a replay up of the Rock Your Routines webinar that happened this weekend. It's called the 5 Key Strategies to Back to School Success, rocking your routines. And I encourage each and every one of you to consider registering for that so that you can catch the replay. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat here on the comments, here on Facebook, so you can have it, and as well as on Zoom for those of you who are here with me on Zoom. And what I want you to consider is, making some time this week before the replay comes down on Sunday to really check out your routine, like which routine you would like to smooth out, because a lot of the questions that we're talking about today, you can actually get ahead of some of these hardest things by smoothing out your routine. And that's why I took the time on a Saturday to hang out with parents for 2 hours and give them as many tips and suggestions as I could, to empower folks. And we all found action steps of what we're going to do next, which routine we're looking at, whether it's the morning or the evening, and also what child behaviors we really want to shift, whether it's, ignoring and not listening, or, saying no, or even getting into fights with siblings. So here, that's my gift to you, is this very comprehensive training. And on the end of the training, there are 3 ways that you can get some personalized support that I don't want you to ignore. So go ahead and grab that link and sign up and get that replay link sent to you so you can go straight into it before Sunday. Okay. Otherwise, we're going to dive in. I'm excited because this is the good stuff. This is the important stuff. This is the stuff that if we leave it alone and don't really address, can actually accumulate to lots of bad memories and a strained relationship. And there's nothing in the world that I want more than for the relationships to be rock solid, for the love to be flowing freely between family members, because I really think that the love that flows between parents and the children that they love fiercely is part of what is going to continue to make humanity possible on the planet. It's one of the most powerful forces, I think, in the universe. So let's do it, friends. Let's get anything that's in the way out of the way. So instead of having, when I ask you the question, what's the hardest thing about parenting? It's something really lighthearted, like, well, sometimes I get frustrated when my kid doesn't listen, but mostly it's going well. Like, I would love for every single one of you to say something like that rather than some of the topics that were shared today. So let's go for it. Here we go. We're going to start with Carolina's question. So Carolina, I'll tag you in a second. She has a 9-year-old boy and a 2-year and 10-month-old girl. And her hardest thing is that her youngest, throws tantrums when she doesn't get her way. How many of you can relate? How many of you have some tantrums happening in your world? Yeah. Well, so the good news and the bad news is that tantrums are going to happen. If you have a child who's already spicy, who's already showing, the way that one of the things that they do when they get upset, when they don't get what they want, is that their anger comes out in this way. It's probably going to be happening for a while. Okay. And that's kind of the bad news. But I can also say that part of the good news is that it's going to be happening for a while, which means that you don't have to get it right the first time. One of my clients just shared with me like their kind of testimonial story, and he said, your kid is going to give you plenty of opportunities to practice. Kala says, yeah, me. Okay, yeah, you can relate, Kala. Good to see that, because that means that Caroline is not on her own. She's not alone here, which thank goodness, right? And so that's a bit of the bad news, is that these tantrums are happening and they're going to keep happening. But also the good news is that you don't have to get it right the first time, and you're going to have plenty of opportunities to practice. And I would even reframe it, and this is something that one of the partner, because that was the dad, the mom of this pair of clients that I have, said, and she's really trying to embrace this idea that I challenged her and invited her to have this perspective, which is, maybe these aren't disasters. These aren't like the worst part of the day. Maybe these aren't like signs that you're messing up or that things are falling apart or that your kid like has got it out for you. Maybe these tantrums are a way of your young person showing you that they want to learn. They want to learn, what do I do? How do I handle it and have tolerance to frustration or tolerance to the no? When I hear no, instead of not being able to tolerate that, they're able to go, that's not what I want, but okay. What if this is an opportunity for them to learn emotional resiliency, like, and what to do with anger? Yeah. So like yelling and throwing a total tantrum where you throw things around, maybe that's not exactly the most productive use of and constructive, way to process anger. And as a little one, you can introduce things to them like breathing tools, and you can introduce things to them like you can stomp it out, go outside and stomp it out, something that they can do with their body that's actually in the green zone of what's okay, right? You can give it a green light. These are possibly, and I would invite everyone who's here right now, Kala's here, hey, to see these big emotional episodes as opportunities for you to practice your coaching and your skills around big emotions, but also an opportunity for them to learn a different way to navigate their big emotions. And every time you bring a tool to them and you try it out or you show it to them, it's an opportunity for them to, learn from you. Okay. So that's something I would invite you into right away. I know Kala is saying yes, and so Carolina as well. And the other piece that I can give you that we're going to go deeper into on October 2nd, we're having us training exactly about this. It's called 3 Keys to Navigating Meltdowns, Tantrums, and Power Struggles with More Calm and More Confidence. We're going to go deeper into this next tip I'm going to share, and I'll also give you a lot of other information. And if you want to come to that, I'll grab the link for you to register for that now, so you don't have to wait until I announce it. One of the things that you can do right away is just really kind of get down with the meltdowns. kind of get down with them, like get down with the science of the meltdown, even is how I would invite you to think of it. Because we are, and this is something that I really want you to listen to, okay? We are pre-wired to melt down. In other words, there are pathways in our brain that we're born with that will lead from, I'm not getting what I want, to I need to scream and yell about this. And while means we have sometimes a more uphill battle to wage, it also means that it's not necessarily a choice or on purpose or something that you're doing wrong or personal when your child melts down. It can feel personal if you're the sort of the the person who is getting to experience the meltdown, we'll say, or if the anger is being directed at you. It can feel so personal. But if we know that we're pre-wired to have this kind of response to when we don't get what we want or what we need, it can actually help us to stay calm ourselves so that we can help them through it. Yeah. Because otherwise what can happen is if we do take it personally, or if we judge it like, oh, this is something's wrong with my kid, or there's something wrong with me, or I did something wrong, or there's something wrong with this day, or don't talk to my kid like that because now they're melting down, it's your fault, right? We can go there where like their lid is flipping, which is we'll explain a lot more on October 2nd, and then our lid flips, and then it's just tough. Okay. It just gets tough from there. Because when there are two dysregulated nervous systems side by side, it can be really hard to downregulate and get those lids back on and get to a calmer place. How many of you have been there? Your kid gets upset and you don't choose to get upset. You get upset too automatically. If we can slow that down with a thought of, okay, hold on, meltdowns are normal. This is something that kids are pre-wired to do. This is not personal. Then you can start to create that space that allows you to actually pick a calm down strategy, set a limit you need to set in a way that's calm and confident. Take a swift action, like scoop them up and take them to another space without hesitation. So it's important to build in these little pieces that kind of lead you to that calmer state. And there's a lot of ways to get there, but this is one of them. The other thing that I can share with you, for those of you who are talking about big emotions and are really thinking about how to navigate them, is knowing that how that whole mechanism works when it comes to one nervous system being upset, and then another nervous system comes into contact with that upset nervous system. So there's these things called mirror neurons, and when you have mirror neurons, what often happens, and I can throw up a little picture about this. What happens with mirror neurons is that you end up having an automatic mirroring of what is in front of you. So how many of you have laughed before you even know what the punchline is? Because the comedian's already laughing and like people are smiling, or someone next to you started laughing and you kind of laugh and then you go, and then it clicks and you actually get the joke, right? It's kind of funny. It's kind of strange. Like, why are you laughing? You haven't even been, you haven't even really had the joke click for you. It's because we mirror the nervous systems around us. And so when we do that, what ends up happening is that, when it's fun and it's like a happy emotion, that's fine. It's no big deal. But when it's a negative emotion, that can create that sort of like cascading effect, or that escalating effect. Here's the image I want you to see. Where like your lid flips and then their lid flips, right? Or their lid flips and then your lid flips. And it's just like, you can't even, it's not even in your control. It just happens automatically. Again, if you know about mirror neurons and you know that they exist, then you won't beat yourself up for getting upset when your kid's upset at first, right? Like that initial reaction wasn't something you chose. You're not like, my kid's upset, and guess what? I think I should get upset too. And then you get upset. It's just not how it works. And so knowing that the two things so far we've talked about is that we have these neural programs for tantrums. So in other kinds of big emotional responses, sometimes it looks more like running away or shutting down, or refusing to talk, or crying on the floor, or all these different things it can look like. It's because the kids are experiencing something that's some kind of discomfort. And there's a pre-programmed part of their brain that tries to rectify the situation by flipping their lid, by getting upset, by showing their distress. Yeah. So one thing I want you all to do is understand that it can be really tempting to make the emotion wrong when it's big. How many of you are guilty of that? I know I am. I've done it way too many times. I'm like, I've even rolled my eyes in front of a kid, like crying again. Like, I mean, it's so rude for me to do that, but you got to get there sometimes. You're like, this again? Oh no. If we can slow that down and really get that thought of like, oh, there are these mirror neurons. Oh, there's this pre-programmed thing happening, and many other strategies I'll share on October 2nd. Then we get to actually choose a helpful way forward that will actually teach our kids how to have less and less meltdowns and tantrums, or for them to be shorter and shorter. So shorter and less frequent, and have more tools for what to do when a big emotion comes up. Really great, right? Yeah. So that's where I would like you to start for those of you who want to understand it. I know Dana Eng also wants that. So Dana, I really recommend that you also sign up for the webinar. It's one of my most popular, and I think you'll get a ton out of it. There's also, Carrie, Andrea, I wonder if this might be for you too, just because you're talking about a child who's like testing a lot. I'm sure a lot of emotions run high. That might be a really good one for you as well. Same with Sujata, who wants to have more strategies to learn self-regulation. I would very much like you to come to the meltdown, the navigating meltdowns, tantrums, and power struggles webinar. Okay. And everything I just shared is a great place to start, so you don't have to wait till October to get that rolling. Another thing you can do when it comes to managing anger and aggression, which is what Rashid, Priscilla, Allison, you all had questions about, and really wanted to learn about that. I would like you to consider, what is the utility of anger? So anger can be one of those tricky emotions where you're just not really sure whether or not it's okay, because anger can often lead to aggression. And we all know that, generalized aggression, where it's happening or if it's consistently happening, can be really upsetting, right? It's like something that we don't want our child to be. We don't want our child to be this aggressive, even violent kid. And so oftentimes when it comes up, first of all, it's triggering to us as adults. Like, it sets off a response for us that we don't even have control over, perhaps because of how aggression has shown up in our lives before. And also because oftentimes we're feeling protective of either ourselves or the environment, or your child's friends they're going to see at school. You worry about maybe them being categorized as a bully, or getting in trouble, like those kinds of things. Yeah. Okay, Kala, good. Thank you. Kala saying me too, that about the aggression and anger. Yeah. So you are in good company, Priscilla, Allison, and Rashid. So what I want to share with you is just this concept about, like, what is mad? Like, what is anger? This is something that we'll go, I go deeper into with my clients when we do the emotional mastery weekend. I have this year-long program called the Family Foundations Immersion. And twice a year, we do these virtual retreats. And one of them is called the Emotional Mastery Weekend. Some of you have heard of it before because it was a prize for one of our contests that we play in this group. But I like to share with them this idea, and it's really easy to remember. I oversimplified it on purpose. Okay, so it's mad, sad, glad, and scared. When you're mad, sad, glad, or scared, what is actually happening? Like, what are you actually after? What is the goal behind mad, sad, glad, and scared? So here's a little insight to that. Mad, I know what I want and you won't give it to me, or the situation won't give it to me. And sometimes what I have to speak into right away is like, it's justified. Like, what about it? Think about a sibling who is saying, I got ice cream and you didn't, and you can't have any of mine. Well, it's justifiable if the other sibling who's being teased basically gets mad. Like, what? You're being mean, right? Like, you're antagonizing me. And so of course I'm angry, right? There are also social injustices that anger is really appropriate. It's so important that we have anger in our nervous systems. If nobody ever got angry, then we might very, very much, be taking advantage of each other even more than we are now, right? And people getting into situations that they couldn't stand up for themselves because that anger, that activation energy isn't there. So what I wanted to challenge you to consider when it comes to anger and aggression is not making the anger itself wrong. Yeah. And I would shift to something called misplaced, like this is misplaced anger. And often with children, especially Kala, your kids' ages, it's because they don't have enough life experience to understand that this actually isn't, for example, an unfair situation. Like, let's say you're being very equitable and you're just asking them to please wait for 5 minutes. Well, if they're already upset, they don't have a concept of time anymore. And it's almost like you're keeping the universe from them or something, right? Like all ice cream ever or whatever. They have this big reaction. And so what our job is to say, it's not that it's not okay to be angry. Like you never want to fight with a feel. Don't pick a fight with a feeling. I mean, put yourself in their shoes. Like if you're angry about somebody, and it's like, don't be angry. You don't need to be angry right now. That's like the last person you call when you want some support, right? And like it's a conversation you don't want to be in. You'd much rather talk to someone else. Yeah. Okay. So can you relate to that? So instead, like consider like acknowledging that the anger is there and helping them kind of come to terms with the fact that they may not get what they want right now. And also check yourself. Are you being reasonable? Or are you being, sort of unreasonably harsh right now? And you can actually apologize and kind of start over. So just because anger's there doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the child or that the emotion itself is wrong. It just may be misplaced or misguided and it might just be off, or you might need to adjust what your expectations are because maybe you are expecting something they just can't do, and they're letting you know with their anger. So one of the things that I have my clients do is I say, okay, so if mad has shown up, make sure that they're not also hungry, lonely, or tired, because those are all contributors to mad. Yeah. And then if you've already checked it out, okay, this isn't because they're hungry, this isn't because they're lonely, this isn't because they're tired. My request really is reasonable. Like you kind of just check, okay, like, am I being reasonable? Is there something else going on here? You're like, no, this really is what it needs to be. Then you can coach them through it and say, like, look, I see that you're mad that you don't have whatever it is, that you don't have ice cream immediately. I wish that I could give you ice cream immediately. I wish I could give that to you. However, this is what's going to happen. Mad needs action. Like it needs specifics, like what is going to happen next, right? So it could be, here's what's going to happen. You're going to, I'm going to have you hold this scooper and warm it up with your hand so that we can get it ready for scooping while I finish unloading the dishwasher. Because that's what needs to happen first, like the 5 minutes of waiting. You can stick with the plan. You don't need to give in to anger when it's misplaced. But you want to give them an action, something they can do. And if it doesn't calm them down to have something constructive they can do, give them a way to go express their anger that doesn't harm either themselves, the environment, or other people. And that's where like sometimes anger just needs to play out. Like it needs to have its piece. Like it needs to say its piece, so to speak. And so you can give them 2, 3, or 4 options of things they can do when they're angry. A favorite of mine is something called the exploding star, which I teach in more depth later on this year in our Calm and the Chaos series. But it's like they tense, and just release. And when they release, they go boom, and they pop open their body like this, like a star. And they tense, and they release, And there's also breaths that they can do, like a lion's breath, like and like really let it out, right? They stick their tongue out, they put their eyes up as high as they can, and they go and they put their little claws out and go and they just like let it out. And then that's a let it out kind of cathartic version of how to deal with it, or how to like move through it and let it say its piece. Then there's also just the fuming until the fire becomes embers and then just becomes steam. Think of steam coming out of the ears where you just go, and do like maybe a big balloon breath where you go, fill up as big as you can in your balloon and let it out. That slows things down. It's a big movement, lets out that strong kind of aggressive sound, but it's not harming anybody or anything. So Kala, at least 3 ideas there for you, right? You got them? Okay. There are 3 people here listening. Make sure you say hello if you haven't yet. Give me a little wave, or maybe put like a yes in the chat if you've gotten anything. Like, have you gotten any good tip out of this so far? Just give me a yes. Like, yes, Vanessa, I'm here. I'm with you. I'm ready for more tips. Give me a yes in the comments, okay? Because this can be more interactive that way. Great. So we've supported quite a few of you already with some self-regulation ideas in terms of like how to get towards that mindset of not making meltdowns wrong, not fighting with feelings. We've specifically addressed anger. We've talked about even checking in. Is there something going on besides this emotion with the hungry, the lonely, and the tired? And that'll take you pretty far, friends, as a place to start. Okay. So I want you to make sure that you're grabbing onto those right now. Write it down somewhere, put it on a sticky note, whatever it is your takeaway. Even putting your takeaway into the comments really helps. Like you might write, I'm going to take a swift, or I'm going to give anger something to do, anger an action to do, because anger likes action. It just does, you know. And even like if maybe they're justifiably angry about something, but how they're handling it is not appropriate. Like I had a client whose kid like decided it would be a great idea to like destroy this shirt they got from a school event, take a picture and send it to their principal to show that they're angry about a policy. I was like, well, that just looks bad on you, honey. Like, you know, what else could we have done here, right? And we ended up being able to work through it where, you know, it's like, well, yeah, you can take action. Obviously, you're motivated to do something about this. How about we do it in a way that doesn't make you look bad though, and kind of silly. And let's give you something you can do, like, you know, make a counter proposal to the rule. Like, hey, I would like to propose that actually, you know, students do get to take home their Chromebooks because you know, and have this app on it because we use it for school too. Let's have I'd like to have a conversation about that. Like, what a much more mature thing to do than to destroy a shirt and send a photo. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily about making the anger go away. And even that, like being a little bit aggressive in terms of like getting to resolution is not necessarily a bad thing either, because it kind of keeps anger focused, like keeps the mind focused on the goal of like resolution or you know, some sort of sense of closure, you know, around the topic or some appeasement or something. So we don't want to throw anger away, and I think it's had a bad rap. It's actually the reason why we have a lot of the rights we have now. It's a lot of reason why we have you know, quite a bit of progress happening, even though very much so we have a long way to go. That we wouldn't be where we were if we had suppressed anger, right? Because how many of you grew up with a model where it was either unsafe expression of anger that like either emotionally or physically harmed others around them or the physical space, or a stuff it, kind of like stuff it down, and then eventually they either get sick or they kind of explode, you know, or do something dramatic. Yeah, I mean, I had both of those models growing up, so it's been fun to jam on anger. I've been doing it today and in life and in research that I've done, because it's like, wait, there's so many ways that anger can actually be useful. And if we know how to channel it, we know how to refine our goals and put those action steps into place, or put it to rest when it's appropriate. But we actually acknowledge that it's a useful emotion and go really, really far with that. Yeah. Another question we have, we're going to shift gears here, is about motivation. Tracy, Kelly, Angelica all asked for how do you motivate the kids to do your schoolwork and stay on track? So I'm going to put that question up here in the comments, just because I think it's just nice to like actually see the question. So that would be Tracy Henley and Kelly, Angelica. So when we're getting back to school, I am just going to acknowledge right now that this is like not necessarily the easiest time of year anyways. And then on top of it, what are we in the middle of? Like a transition back to in-person school for most of us, right? And that's no small thing. Like, I just want to acknowledge right now that any of you are feeling the strain of back to school, you're not alone. I'm with you. I see you. And the struggle is real. Like, this is not something we're making up. Like, oh, we just are complaining. Like, no, this is a time of real challenge. And I don't want to lose that in this conversation. Okay. As I roll into some motivation strategies. And some of the things we're going to be talking about is going to be kind and clever ways to motivate your kids. And I have a whole model I teach, and I give these workshops as well during the year, and it's part of the year-long immersion as well. We even do a 3-day retreat about it, just like we do for the emotional mastery. Because finding kind and clever ways to motivate our kids without using punishments and rewards or constant negotiation or so many reminders it's a process to get there. And if we didn't grow up with the model of how to do that with young kids, we often feel like a fish out of water with this one. We're like, okay, I've repeated myself, I've explained it, I've even shown them how, maybe, and yet they're not doing it again. And when it comes to schoolwork, I mean, we have this extra challenge of they're still reacclimating. Yeah. So a couple things I can share that you can run with. This is for, Tracy, Kelly, and Angelica especially, is that getting your routines down does make a huge difference, because without a little bit of structure and sort of previewing and maybe even like practicing and rehearsing to get ready for this after this new schedule and this now homework time, kids are going to rebel. They're going to retaliate. They're going to push back. They're going to refuse. And you can kind of empathize with why, because they're like, I've already been through so much. Like, can I just go to school and come home and then relax? Right. I mean, we can all relate to that when we go to work, those of us who've had careers, right? And we can definitely remember being kids and not wanting to have to do homework. We'd much rather play after school, relax. So we've got to get to the other side of this in kind and clever ways. And of course, we will go towards explaining and reminding, and then having a consequence or else, right? And I'm not saying that any of those are wrong, but those are the ones you are probably obvious. You've already tried. So let's dig into some other new ideas. Yeah. You guys ready for that? If you are, just put the word ready in the comments so I know you're with me. Kala, I hear you. Yeah, having both as a way as growing up. Yeah. And so you're really happy to hear these other sessions to find a healthier and better way to parent your kid and your 3 bonus kids. Kala, you've got your hands full. Kala's ready. Okay, great. Kala, I think we're due for a call. We're due for a conversation, Kala. I think I remember you saying you were going to find time to do a session with me. So I'm going to private message you with a link so you can just book. Yeah, because it was that complimentary one. Remember you took the quiz? Yeah, I think you did. All right. I'll be in touch. Anyway, so back to motivation. The first place I like to start is, of course, are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they tired? Like, is there something already in the way of them being motivated that's really more like circumstantial? Like, were they already like, so they did so many things, like we didn't build in a break, for example, for the schoolwork, didn't build in a break for them to sort of recover from school before just launching straight into homework. Or that break wasn't really like a restorative break. It wasn't enough of like maybe a little downtime, because maybe that break was run around like crazy. And now they're like hungry and tired and they're angry at their sibling for the fight they just had. And now they're like kind of a hot mess coming into homework time, right? So really thinking about setting up the stage for like making sure there's a little quiet time. Maybe there's a podcast or an audiobook on, and they have some snacks and they just get to have a little downtime first. If and when you can build that in, especially if you see them coming in with that hungry, angry, lonely, tired kind of vibe, you can build that into your routine. I would say, if you can build that into your routine, you will actually, like, let's say you have an hour and a half for homework, you'll get more out of the hour and a half if you spend the first 15 minutes doing something like that. Then when they're already also in a listening mood with a podcast on, with story being read, then you can shift really easily to them hearing another voice say, so what's the plan for homework? What are we going to do next? And then my next tip comes up. Okay. So set the stage, get the kids in a good place where they're fed, they're, emotionally pretty calm, they feel connected, they're not lonely and wishing they had your attention, like you've spent a little time with them, and they've had a little rest. So we've addressed that hungry, angry, lonely, tired thing. Okay. Next thing is I'd like you to practice getting into their world. Okay. This is the first of 4 strategies that I teach in the motivation workshop that I give at schools. Getting into their world, meaning like actually find out what are their assignments, what is it that's easy, what is it that's hard, like asking questions, asking them to show them to you. Having your kid like play a little dumb and have your kid like walk you through their assignment is one of the best ways to actually get them to preview the instructions before they start. Now, I want to just say that for some relationships between parents and kids, this is hard, and it's been hard for a while. And if that's you, I want you to know that you can absolutely have a breakthrough around it. Like if you're finding that your child doesn't want to have that conversation with you, refuses to share, have you look at their homework, refuses to even do that quiet time with you, they're just storming off and closing their door, we need to get to the bottom of that, and as soon as possible. Because otherwise, like you're going to start bringing out heavier and heavier like consequences and things, because they're already like, it's already escalated. So we need to de-escalate the situation and get you guys back into trusting communication. And also do a little assessment of like what's going on here. Like, do you need to, maybe reboot the whole routine map? Do you need to spend some quality time with them, doing some things that they really love for a while before you even bring up homework again? Like, let's find out. One of the ways that you can find out, and Kala, this is where I think you had taken the quiz, I believe, is to take this parent discovery quiz. And Kala, if it's been a while, take it again. I would recommend it. And in that, it can be really clarifying to see like, where do I feel strong? Where do I feel strong and where do I not feel strong? Like what is going on with that? And let's see if it'll let me. And when you have clarity on that, you'll kind of know like, how do I get to the other side of this where I'm able to, like get into the kind of collaborative conversation that you want to be in with your kids. Yeah. Because I know what that's like. Like I've been there. I've been in the middle of it where, like I've told parents like, yeah, you just need to talk to your kids. And they're like, my kid won't even talk to me. And it's like, yeah, there's this pre-step that we need to make. So taking the quiz will really help you figure that out. For some reason, Facebook's not letting me post it right now. So I will promise to put it in when this video is over. It'll be in this post in the comment, in the description. Because when you take the quiz, it clarifies that like what to focus on next, but then also there's this opportunity to apply for a strategy session with me, and we'll get to actually sit down and go over your quiz and talk about some real talk privately about what is it that needs to happen so that these conversations will come with ease. Yeah, so I didn't want to leave you hanging with like, oh, just go get into their world. And for you, I know several of you on the other side will be like, they won't let me, they won't even talk to me, they won't let me even see their homework. And I'm like, okay, we got to rewind and build towards that then. So I don't want to leave you hanging with that. But when I say get into their world, this is a great motivation strategy for any transition as well. So transitioning into homework, right? So let's say the kids, it's like the agreement is that you start homework by 4, you come into the room at 4:03 and no homework is happening. One of the most common mistakes parents make is instead of like connecting with their kid to see what it is that they're so distracted by, or getting into their world and kind of sitting with them for a minute or two, they'll immediately go in with correcting, but how many of you would like to be managed that way by a manager? Like your break's going 2 minutes too long and they come in and like, why are you still on break? That's not a very fun environment to learn or to work in. And that's basically what homework time is, right? It's like learning and working. So what you might consider is connecting with them before correcting. One of my smart parents, Sergio, just said that this was one of his biggest things he's been focusing on that's had the biggest difference. And same with my other client, Aaron, had said, like, the connecting before correcting, man, that's taken me so far. Because he used to come into the room and immediately say something like that, like, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing this? We're all guilty. I've done it. Have you done it? Yeah. So instead, take that breath, because you probably had a reaction as soon as you walked in and saw they weren't started yet, like, oh God, they're not getting going or whatever. What are they doing? Try to take a pause, calm yourself. Kyla's like, yes. Yeah. Kyla's like, you know what I'm doing, what's happening, Vanessa? How do you know? Because I've been there, and I've now had hundreds of conversations with parents over the last 20 years. And I just know what this is like, man. So instead, take a moment and go, like, I'm gonna see, what is it that is so compelling that they're focusing on that instead, and go sit next to them and look at, like, instead of like this power struggle of like, what are you doing? Why aren't you starting your homework? Why do you always yell at me? I can't, like, leave me alone, or like, fine, I'll start. And it's this whole power struggle where you're like, push, 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 push. Instead, I invite you to, instead of this kind of pushing back and forth sort of dynamic, whatever they're doing, come up to them and just sit next to them and look at it too. It's just the simplest thing, but just actually drop down at their level, put your eyes on whatever it is they're looking at, and take a little bit of interest. Like, oh, what's this? Oh, I don't think I know. I've seen that one. What is that about? Oh, cool. Oh, is that the character that you really like? Neat. Like, say they're watching something. Oh, ooh, that was funny. Like, just like be with them a little bit. And then you can do it for 30 seconds or a minute, and then say, hey, get their attention, like their full attention. Hey, let's pause it for a second. Okay. Pause. Hey, I was noticing it's already after 4, and our agreement was we would start homework right at 4. It's okay that I'm needing to remind you today, but I do hope you'll remember in the future. That kind of helps you just put a pin in it for the next time. And they could say, what do we need to do to get started? Do you want to grab your backpack, and I'll grab some pencils, and we can meet at the table? Such a different experience, right? Than and what I used to get in my home was, Vanessa, are you doing your homework? Vanessa, what are you doing? And it was just like this escalating thing, like this voice from afar, and I'd be like, shoot, I guess I should do it. Or like, I would just pretend it wasn't happening until she came in the room fuming with her hands on her hips, not very helpful for either of us. Now I feel lorded over. She's mad and frustrated. We've all been there. So let's get it on track. We'll get into their world. So my action step for you is, build in that setting up for success step, really addressing the hungry, angry, lonely, tired stuff into the schedule right before homework. Connect before you correct by getting into their world. Okay. Sound good? All right. And if you're like, routines, how do I set up routines? Go back up to the link that has the sign up for the replay for the routines, because that's only up until Sunday. Then it goes away. I only do that one for the public a couple times a year, usually at back to school time, and maybe in January as we're kind of revamping our routines as a community. So in my immersion, we work on it constantly, because routines are a living document, until we got them down. But I just want you to have, like, at least the first steps. So go ahead and register for that. Okay, I want to go make sure I talk about this next one. So how can I help my family better deal with isolation and uncertainty? This is Natalie, Tynell, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Ed, and Shannon. And many of us didn't even think to ask the question, but we do have that question too. So I'm going to make sure to tag you here. Now, what I'm noticing, friends, is that this is not just a raising our resilience question, like right here in the group. This is a national conversation. And resilience is becoming almost a buzzword out there for a good reason. And we've always known that resilience is important, but it's becoming really crystal clear that if we don't pay attention to what's happening with our kids, with their nervous systems, with their social emotional well-being, then they can greatly underperform as they're heading back to school. And I think it's really reasonable that many of us are asking these questions right now and looking for support. So I just wanted to speak to that first, just to make sure that you know that I've got your back on this one. Yeah. And to just normalize it and take a moment to like just feel seen and heard, or like in your concern with this one. Because the isolation has a cumulative effect. That's what we know about relationship and relatedness research. I mean, like a baby that's not talked to or touched will die. And so there's this really deep human need we have to be in community, to be with others who are going through similar things. I mean, that's part of why I built this community and why I built an even smaller, tighter group in the Family Foundations Immersion program, the year-long academy that I have, because we need each other. And so what I would challenge each of us to do, and if you're here and if you're listening, put into the comments several things that you've done to help kids cope with isolation, to get more connected and reconnected. So a few things that I can share, and I'll put this in the comments as well, is like, play games with relatives, family, friends, child friends, virtually. Like, get on board with the fact that that might be one of the ways that kids get their socialization right now. The other is get really clear on what level of risk and exposure you are okay with, like down to like how much hand washing needs to happen, masking, is it indoor or outdoors? Is it, do we need to use hand sanitizer? Can food be there and we can take off masks and eat food or not? Like, get really clear about what it takes for you and your child to have access to social opportunities. Because I think that, one thing that I've even noticed for myself as I'm like getting back out there into like meeting friends and socializing, it's like, we almost need to have this whole new vocabulary for what our comfort and what our needs are. And I think that a lot of us are so unfamiliar with the conversation that we'd rather just like not have it. And then we're literally like shutting down these possible avenues to feeling connected in the time that we need it the most. I mean, that's part of why I brought all of my services virtual, and I make them incredibly interactive with like breakout rooms and games and contests and ways that we can be a community online and not feel so isolated while we're doing the best we can to protect our health. So if that's you, if this is speaking to you, that's something I would really consider, is getting really clear. And then I would actually practice with a partner of some kind, whether it's, someone in your household or not, how to share what you are comfortable with. And that way you're going to pave the way for things like play dates, things like meetups, participating in community events. Like I saw this weekend, there was a bunch of folks in my community that a little sidewalk fair, and masking was mandatory, even though it was outdoors. And it just was sort of to say, okay, then anybody who feels more comfortable with mask wearing is going to feel more comfortable attending. And that was just such a great community effort I saw. It can look different in each community because each community has different levels of comfort. So I would just say, like, challenge yourself and to practice that language around what you're comfortable with and what you're uncomfortable with, so that you can find out what's a good match in terms of play dates and things, and just be really upfront and kind of in charge in that way. And then the other thing that you can do in terms of isolation and uncertainty is create rhythms. And this is, again, going to be coming back to that routine piece, but create rhythms in daily life. And this can be as simple as, and I would even say especially building in self-care, especially self-care routines. So that means, once a week, every family member gets one-on-one time with each other, perhaps. And especially if you have a kid who's like a QT kid, I call it the quality time kid, like that's their top love language. That's really important. Like, we need reassurance. Like, just because by default we've been spending so much time together doesn't mean that we're actually getting that depth of connection. So that's one. Self-care routines could look like making sure that you get some exercise, or making sure that you're hydrating, or making sure that you're eating at a timely, getting those snacks in that the kids need. Encouraging them to do things that are soothing, like take a longer bath with bubbles, or, like having some cuddle time in the morning, just getting their physical kind of soothing needs met. So building those things in is going to help. And then for uncertainty, like if you can start to play around with like how to create that rhythm, again, do the routines training, might as well do it between now and Sunday, just listen to it and get some ideas so that everybody kind of has this rhythm that you can start to groove into, where everybody knows their role, everybody kind of knows what the timing is. Even little kids can do like a little visual chart. I can show you a little picture of that real quick, something that I go over more detail in the routines training. But what I want you to think of is like, just get a sense of what it would feel like to, get out the door on time, not stressed and tired, and having had a successful morning routine. What it would feel like to get the kids to bed on time. I mean, I do a lot of sleep training advice for parents with kids that are 2 and older, because of what a difference it makes when you get that hour back at the end of the night, where you have otherwise been just totally bogged down in, a 2-hour long routine. Hey, and I want to say hey to Gustavo. Good to have you here on Zoom. I hadn't had a chance to say hello to yet. But yeah, here's a little basic flip chart example for little kids. And this is one that my client made next to it based off of this idea. Like the kids actually drew it, was get dressed, brush your teeth, eat breakfast. And I think this one is something to do with feed the snake. I don't remember. But yeah, they just have these little magnets and just flip them up if you don't want to do something like this fancy with like the sticky magnets and everything. But that's totally achievable. And just having this little win for the morning that we got all the steps done can be so helpful, for example. And there are ones also, of course, for older kids as well that are out there. I have several examples, again, in the routines training. So if you have not yet signed up for that, can't emphasize it enough times, please make sure you do. I'll put the link in the chat one more time for all of you. For Gustavo, who wasn't here, I think when I gave it the first time, and for the folks listening on Facebook, there it is. Go ahead and register, and the replay will kick to you right away, and you can watch it from now until the end of Sunday. Okay. So getting into rhythm really helps with uncertainty. Also getting down with all the emotions. So like anger can come up with uncertainty, but so can fear. And so let's go back to that little chart that I had for you with the mad, sad, glad, and scared. Let me just put it up here so we can look at it again. So scared often is around that uncertainty, and what scared often means, in like what we're calling just, in its simplest form, is, let's go back to this one. I know what I want, and I don't know how to get it, or I don't know what I need right now, but something's not okay. Like that's more like a higher level of scared and uncertain, like beyond uncertain. It's sort of like freaking out. And the thing about fear that's so helpful is it helps us be vigilant so that we don't like walk in front of a moving object like a car, right, or something. And so having just a little bit of fear of like, oh yeah, like this is a dangerous street, or like streets are a little dangerous, I should definitely check, can actually help us to be more vigilant in our environment. And so uncertainty, we can shift to like vigilance around, doing the things that we know that they can do to keep themselves safe and healthy as possible. And in COVID times, that includes all these, kind of precautionary, universal, health kind of methods of hand washing and masking and things like that, potentially, depending on what your family is doing. And just knowing how to get it, like how do you get to as safe as possible? Yeah, how do you get to protecting your health as much as possible? Like how do we get there? And like having steps they can take, yeah, really helps with uncertainty. And something you can say is even name it, like I can see that you want to have more control over like whether or not you get sick. I hear you. Would you like some help with that? And it could be like this big weight off their shoulders of like, yes, thank you. I'm so glad you want to help me with that. And it's like, and you can empathize with them. Like, it's hard to feel scared about germs and getting sick. And sometimes I feel scared too. But here are some things we can do. So anger likes action in the sense of like making things right, or like, so they can get their point across. fear, it's more about like getting back in control and realizing what you do have control over versus what you don't. And so like we can't control 100% whether you're going to get sick, but we can control how many risks we take and how we take care of our bodies. And we can control like eating good food and boosting our immune systems by taking our vitamins. Like there's a lot of things we can do. Let's focus on those. So hopefully that addresses that uncertainty question. I know there's other things that are a part of that. And so let me know what that is in the chat, okay? Or sign up for a session or apply for a session through the quiz, which I'll hopefully be able to share soon. So I think we've covered all of the questions. You know, one thing I might want to speak a little more to in our last minute or two here is how to manage a child who is constantly testing every boundary. I just want to say a key word to everybody here who's listening, which is power. This is a child who wants and needs power and maybe even attention. And so when that's happening, it's called the Rudolf Dreikers has this framework called the mistaken goals of behavior. And one of the mistaken goals where like they're testing, but really what they're doing is they're like finding out how power works. And they want to know, how does this little mini society of our family, what are the rules? How does it work? How do I get influence? How do I get control? And they're compulsory or like, you know, involuntarily testing it. Push the button, what happens? Push that button, what happens? Test that limit, see what happens. So first I would wrap my head around like, okay, so my kid is a social scientist trying to understand how power works and maybe he's trying to get some attention. And what I would want to shift your focus on is how can I give some positive power to this kid? And one of the most empowering things you can do is actually included in the routines training. It's about gathering their input and building in choices in the routine. I think your kid needs that and wants it and could have used it yesterday, is my sense with Carrie, especially. So, and anyone else who has a kid who's testing boundaries, really think about how to give them more power and influence. And if you want a very concrete way to do that, go listen to the routines training. It'll give it to you. We go over that extensively for actually another parent who had the same question, I think Caroline. So listen to how I coach Caroline on that training call, and you'll get a good sense of what to do with that. So with that, we're going to close. Please let me know if you're here. Just say hello. Like, you know, tell me one thing you got out of this training, so I know that you're, you know, pulling out your gems. It'll also help you remember what it is that you don't want to forget. It'll also be a service to anyone else who comes and listens to this replay so that they can hear, you know, oh, like what were the nuggets? You know, maybe it was connecting before correcting, or it was meltdowns are normal. They're a natural way that we are hardwired to respond to discomfort. Maybe it was, you know, anger likes action, so give it something to do, you know, whatever it might be. Go ahead and put it into the comments, because I think this one was pretty full. We got some good gems here, and I want to know which one you're working on next. Okay. All right, y'all, lots of love to you. I will see you next week. Another segment of Ask Me Anything. Another thing you can do besides posting a takeaway is post a question that you would love answered in our next Ask Me Anything. And we'll be back here next Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific. And hopefully we'll see you on the other side of the replay. Some of you might even end up qualifying for those sessions that I've opened up this week for some coaching. So go ahead and take the quiz. Make sure you do that as well. Gustavo, I can give you the quiz link right here in Zoom, so you can have it. And then for folks on Facebook, you're going to need to go to the description of this video and grab the link there, because Facebook's not letting me post it in the chat for some reason. Okay. All right. I'll see you all next time. Lots of love. Go get it. You got this. Okay. I see you. You got this. And we're in this together. And please, you could parent alone, but you don't have to. Like come fold into the community and be supported. Lots of love to you. Bye for now.